The final transmission from the Galactic Empire wasn't a declaration of war or a peace treaty. It was a weather report for a star that died 9,872 years ago, and we've been obeying it ever since. Dr. Elara Vance knows this is the thing that will break her. Not the dust of 100 dead worlds in her lungs, or the ghosts of failed expeditions that whisper in her sleep. It's this single, impossible data point glowing on her private terminal, a truth so forbidden it feels radioactive. The Aethelian Empire, the silent god that rules the Orion-Cygnus Arm with invisible laws and impenetrable borders, hasn't spoken a new word in 10,000 years. Its last official broadcast was a looped, automated message detailing solar flare activity for a star that went supernova millennia before humanity even invented the wheel. Every law, every trade route, every scrap of our civilization is built on the echo of a dead star's weather. The central mystery of the galaxy isn't where the Empire is, but why a civilization powerful enough to build a dominion across the stars would choose to speak only in the voice of a long-dead past. What is the true purpose of a ruler that refuses to speak? Elara's hands are steady as she copies the data core, a stolen sliver of obsidian humming with catastrophic truth. Her motivation is a scar, not a dream. 5 years ago, her insistence on an unsanctioned dig on a cursed Imperial outpost got her entire team recalled, their funding vaporized, their careers dust. She was labeled obsessive, unstable, a liability. This data is her vindication, her proof that the curse was just a lie hiding something worse. The air in her cluttered university lab on Nova Prime is cold, smelling of ozone and old coffee. The only light comes from her screens, painting her sharp features in pale blue. She is a woman haunted not by what she's found, but by what she failed to find back then. She doesn't hear the main lab door sigh open, but she feels the change in pressure, the subtle shift in the hum of the environmental systems. Footsteps, measured and heavy, echo on the polished floor, not the shuffling gait of a late-night grad student. Dr. Vance, the voice is a gravelly baritone, devoid of academic curiosity. It carries the flat authority of stamped metal and enforced silence. Elara doesn't jump. She slowly turns, her body a careful study in casual innocence. The man filling her doorway is built like a siege engine draped in the grey and black of the Imperial Compliance Directorate, Commander Kael. His face is a topography of old conflicts, his eyes the color of a frozen sea. He's holding a data slate, its screen facing her. On it is a security feed, timestamped 3 hours ago, showing her accessing a sealed archaeological archive under a professor's stolen clearance code. Working late, Elara says, her voice remarkably calm. She subtly shifts her stance, blocking the terminal behind her. Unauthorized access to a Class 7 Imperial historical record is more than overtime, Doctor. It's treason. Kael steps into the room, his gaze sweeping over the scattered artifacts, the tangled cables, lingering on her hands. What were you looking for? The truth, she says, the word out before she can cage it. Kael's mouth twitches, not a smile, but a flicker of weary recognition. Truth is a regulated commodity. You of all people should know the penalties for smuggling it. He's referring to her past. He's done his homework. He takes another step. The data core, Doctor, hand it over. Maybe your sentence will be less than life. Her heart is a frantic drum against her ribs. This is it, the end of everything. Career, freedom, her name scrubbed from history just like the truth she's uncovered. But as her eyes dart from Kael's implacable face to the stolen core on her desk, a new chilling thought erupts. He's not here for her, not really. The Compliance Directorate doesn't send a commander for one rogue academic. They send enforcers. They send a commander when the secret is big enough to shatter worlds. His presence isn't a threat, it's a confirmation. She has found something real, and something real is very, very afraid of being found. She makes a decision in the space between two heartbeats. It's not a plan, it's an instinct. Her hand flashes out, not for the data core, but for a small, unlabeled cylinder on her desk, a high-grade archaeological sonic trowel. She slams it against the main power coupling for her terminal array. A deafening shriek of feedback and a shower of white sparks erupt from the console. Kael flinches, his hand going to his sidearm. In that half-second of disrupted senses, Elara grabs the core and a pre-packed go-bag from under her desk. She doesn't head for the door he blocks. She sprints for the wall behind her towards the narrow service duct whose latch she'd quietly disabled weeks ago, a paranoid precaution that has just become her only hope. Kael recovers, his weapon drawn. Vance, stop. The service duct is a vertical tomb of humming cables and stale air. Elara's boots slip on the smooth alloy, the stolen data core a burning brand against her ribs. Below she can hear Kael barking orders into his comm, the sound muffled but closing in. She climbs, muscles screaming, towards a forgotten maintenance hatch her schematics said led to the university's rooftop transit pad. She bursts out into the neon-drenched night of Nova Prime. The air is thick with the smell of ionized rain and street food from the lower levels. A public skimmer is idling at the pad's edge, its automated driver light blinking green. She throws herself inside, slamming her palm on the destination console and selecting the starport at random. Go fast. As the skimmer peels away, she risks a look back. Kael emerges onto the roof, but he doesn't fire. He just watches her go, his face an unreadable mask in the flashing city lights. That's worse. He's not chasing, he's tracking. In the shuddering silence of the skimmer, she plugs the data core into her portable reader. The stolen files unfold. It's not just the weather report. Buried in the metadata of 10,000 years of Imperial silence is a pattern, a pulse, not a message, but a signal broadcast from the impenetrable core worlds on a cycle so regular it makes stellar orbits look chaotic. It's a carrier wave, empty of content, flooding the galaxy on a bandwidth no modern species uses anymore. A silent scream on a dead frequency. Her skimmer weaves through traffic lanes. A news hologram flickers on a passing building, showing smiling children on a frontier world, their colony celebrating its first century of peaceful development under Imperial guidance. The technology in the background is barely more advanced than what the settlers arrived with. A cold understanding settles in her gut. The silence isn't passive, it's active, it's a broadcast. Her comm chimes with a priority override. The university chancellor's face appears, pale and furious. Elara, by the gods, what have you done? Compliance is locking down the entire archaeology wing. They're calling you a data thief, a saboteur. Turn yourself in now, and I can maybe. They're lying, Charles, she interrupts, her voice raw. The Empire hasn't spoken because it's too busy transmitting something else, something that's keeping us docile. The Chancellor's anger melts into something like pity. Elara, your obsession, it's destroyed you. They've shown me evidence, your past misconduct. The psych evaluations you failed after your team was recalled. They say you're constructing fantasies to cope with your guilt. He leans closer. Let them help you, please. The call cuts out. The betrayal is a physical blow. They've already rewritten the narrative. She's not an archaeologist with a discovery. She's an unstable former employee with a history of breaking rules. Kael isn't just chasing her. He's erasing her. The skimmer docks at the chaotic starport. She melts into the crowd, hood up, buying a one-way ticket to the fringe system of Viridia with untraceable cryptoscript. The freighter is a rust bucket, smelling of grease and alien musk. As it lumbers out of the docking bay, she sees 3 sleek, grey compliance interceptors settling around her university like vultures. On the 5-day haul to Viridia, she works. The Pulse. She cross-references it with galactic archaeological surveys, with economic growth charts, with technological innovation indexes. The correlation is not subtle, it's horrifying. Every species that falls under the Aethelian signals blanket shows the same curve. Initial growth, then a long, flat plateau. Ambition fades. Revolutionary ideas spark and die. Societies become efficient, peaceful, and utterly stagnant. The signal is strongest near the ancient, crumbling relay stations the Empire left behind, stations officially classified as decommissioned communications hubs. That's her destination. Viridia isn't random. It hosts Relay Station Theta, a crumbling spire on a dead moon, listed in every guide as a harmless historical monument. She lands under a false name. The moon is airless, its surface grey dust. Relay Station Theta is a jagged tooth against the black sky, pitted by micrometeors. Inside, it's a cathedral of dead technology, but her scanner, tuned to the Empire's ghost frequency, is screaming. The signal isn't being received here, it's being amplified. She finds the heart of the station, not a control room but a vast spherical chamber. In its center hangs a complex crystal array, pulsing with a deep, subsonic thrum she feels in her teeth. It's not broken. It's perfectly maintained, powered by a geothermal tap drilled into the moon's core. This is no monument. It's a living machine, doing its job perfectly after 10,000 years. She's recording everything when the outer airlock cycles. Heavy footsteps echo in the metallic corridors. Too fast, they found her. The footsteps are methodical, unhurried. They know she's trapped. Elara kills her scanner's light, plunging the spherical chamber into darkness broken only by the faint, eerie glow of the pulsing crystal array. She presses herself against a cold console, her breath loud in her helmet. The inner door hisses open. A suit lamp cuts through the dark, sweeping the room. It's not a squad of enforcers, it's just him. Commander Kael, his expression grim behind his visor, a heavy neural pistol held low at his side. You can't outrun a tracker in your bloodstream, Doctor. His voice crackles over the local suit channel. The university medics implanted it during your last, mandatory wellness check. The betrayal is so complete it steals her breath. They'd been planning this for years. She steps into the light, hands raised, the data core visibly tucked into her suit's chest pouch. Then take the core, but look at this place first. Just look. For a moment, she thinks he'll just stun her and be done with it. His finger tenses on the trigger. Then his lamp sweeps upward, illuminating the vast, impossible machinery. The crystal array hums, resonating with a frequency that makes his helmet vibrate. He sees the geothermal power conduits, fresh and humming. He sees the lack of dust, the perfect preservation. This is no ruin. A decommissioned relay, he states, but the certainty in his voice is gone. It's not a relay, it's a suppressor, Elara says, her voice fierce. That pulse you're feeling in your teeth, it's being broadcast galaxy-wide. I've mapped it. Where the signal is strongest, innovation flatlines, ambition dies, societies become peaceful, prosperous, and utterly stagnant. We're not being governed, Commander, we're being farmed, for our silence. Kael is silent for a long time, his lamp fixed on the machine. The peace of the Ethel, he finally says, quoting the foundational doctrine every child learns, the gift of stability. It's a cage, she whispers. A proximity alarm blares on Kael's wrist unit, a shrill, invasive shriek. His head snaps down. Compliance interceptors, 2 minutes out, they're not my team. He looks at her, and for the first time she sees conflict in those frozen eyes. He was sent to retrieve her quietly, to bury the secret. The interceptors means Central Compliance has decided retrieval is too risky. They're here for a sterilization. You have a ship, Elara says, not asking. He makes a decision with a soldier's speed. Follow me, now. They run, not back to the main airlock, but through a secondary maintenance tunnel Kael's schematics show. His sleek, grey courier ship is hidden in a shadowed canyon. They're barely aboard when the first interceptor screams overhead, scanning the relay with lethal intent. Inside the ship's cockpit, Kael punches the engines, weaving through the moon's rocky spires. They'll shoot us down, he grunts, his hands flying over the controls. We need to lose them before the jump point. Change the destination, Elara says, pulling up a star chart. Don't go to the nearest hub, they'll expect that. Plot a course here. She highlights a system on the fringe, a red dwarf listed as uninhabited. The signal origin triangulation I did, there's an anomaly there. A gap in the broadcast, a dead zone. A hole in their weapon, Kael mutters, rerouting. The ship shudders as a near-miss plasma bolt scorches past the view screen. They make the jump in a storm of static, the pursuing ships vanishing. In the sudden, eerie quiet of faster-than-light travel, the tension doesn't break, it changes. Kael leans back, staring at the streaking stars. I've enforced the silence my entire career, he says, not looking at her. I believed in it, order over chaos. The Empire's peace was worth the price of a few questions. But a weapon that targets the mind of a species that targets the future itself, he trails off. The foundation of his life is crumbling. Elara studies him. This is not an ally she wanted, but he's the one she has. Why did you help me? Because they sent kill teams, he says simply, and you're not the one acting like you have something to hide. They emerge at the red dwarf system. The star is a sullen ember, and there floating in the silent dark is the anomaly. It's not a planet, it's a ship, or what's left of one. Aethelian design but ancient, pitted and scarred. It's colossal, a city of black metal, and it's drifting, dark and dead. But their scanners reveal the truth. It's not dead. It's encased in a shimmering stasis field of unimaginable complexity. Derelict ship hangs against the red dwarf like a fossilized god. Kael brings their courier in close, the scanners painting a nightmare. The stasis field isn't just a bubble. It's a fractal lattice of frozen light woven through the ship's superstructure, and within it, visible through crystal-clear panels, are figures. Aethelian, tall, elegant, their features serene. They stand at consoles, walk through corridors, gather in halls, perfectly preserved, not as corpses but as living moments arrested in time. Their eyes are open, unblinking, conscious. It's not a ship, Elara breathes, her voice hollow in the cockpit. It's a snapshot. Her portable reader, still linked to the stolen core, finally finishes decrypting the deepest files. Not tactical data, philosophy, a manifesto. She reads it aloud, the words tasting like ash. The Aethelian final theorem. Perfection is a state, not a process. All growth leads to decay. All ambition leads to conflict. To preserve a perfect society, one must remove the variables, time, choice, and desire. The Empire has achieved utopia by stepping outside the stream of history. It is the garden, and the galaxy must be prevented from growing weeds. Kael stares at the silent, staring figures. The rulers, they put themselves in a museum, and left the lights on. The central mystery shatters into a truth more terrifying than any weapon. The Empire isn't dead, it isn't neglectful, it is perfectly, eternally satisfied. The silence isn't a policy, it's the fence around the garden. The relay network broadcasts a subliminal field that suppresses the chaotic, ambitious, innovative drives in all subject species, not to control them, but to protect the Empire's own frozen peace. To ensure no upstart race ever becomes advanced or ambitious enough to stumble upon the core worlds and flick the switch, disturbing their timeless, silent heaven. We're not subjects, Elara whispers, we're insulation. An alarm blares. The courier's sensors detect a power surge within the derelict. The stasis field is fluctuating. Their proximity, their active scans, are causing a ripple in the perfect stillness. On the view screen, one of the frozen Aethelian figures near a viewport turns its head, just a fraction. Its eyes seem to track their ship. Panic is a cold knife. They're aware, Kael says, his hand hovering over the throttle. They see us, an anomaly in their perfect stillness. Elara's mind races, connecting the final dots. The relay network has a control function. A single, focused burst of counterfrequency from a primary relay, like the one on Viridia's moon, could theoretically shatter the silence field across a sector. It would be a scream in the quiet. It would let humanity and every other species think freely again. But the ripple it would send through the stasis fields, it would be an alarm bell. It would wake the gardeners. She has the codes. The data core contains the ancient command protocols. She can do it from here, using the courier's comm array to hijack relay theta. Kael sees the realization on her face. If you do this, you don't just free humanity. You potentially unleash a civilization of godlike beings who consider us weeds in their garden. They won't negotiate. They'll prune. And if I don't, Elara says, her eyes locked on the countless worlds living in gentle, stifling peace, we stay in the quiet forever. We never reach for the next star. We never ask the next question. We just plateau until our sons die. It is the choice between a chance of catastrophic freedom and a guarantee of peaceful oblivion. She thinks of her disgraced team, their curiosity punished. She thinks of the smiling, stagnant children on the news hologram. She thinks of the single, slow blink of that Aethelian's eye, a being for whom 10,000 years is a momentary irritation. Her hands move. She plugs the core into the ship's system. The command interface blooms, a simple binary option, activate terminus protocol, yes, no. Kael doesn't stop her. He just watches the derelict, his weapon useless against what lies within. Whatever you choose, Doctor, he says softly, they will come for us now. Elara's finger hovers. This is the weight of a galaxy. Not as a conqueror, but as a librarian deciding whether to shush a room full of dreaming children or let them shout, knowing the sleeping giants upstairs will wake. She makes her choice. The courier's comm array pulses, sending a string of ancient codes screaming toward relay station theta, light years away. For a moment, nothing. Then on the sensor display, the ghostly pulse of the silence field across the sector stutters, a blip of static in the perfect, oppressive quiet. On the derelict, the stasis field shimmers violently. Hundreds of those serene, frozen faces turn in unison toward the source of the ripple, toward them. Elara doesn't wait to see more. The ripple from relay theta is a stone thrown into a still pond. On the courier's long-range scanner, the ghostly pulse of the silence field across the sector doesn't just stutter, it tears. A jagged, silent scream of dead air opens up over 3 star systems, a hole in the blanket. For the first time in 10,000 years, a corner of the galaxy is thinking in the quiet. On the derelict, the reaction is instantaneous. The shimmering stasis field doesn't collapse, it flexes. The hundreds of serene Aethelian faces are all turned toward them now, a silent audience of statues. Then in perfect unison they blink, once, slowly. It is the most terrifying thing Elara has ever seen. They're not waking up, Kael says, his voice tight. They were already awake, they were just waiting. A new signal appears on the comms, not a broadcast but a tight beam laser link, originating from the derelict. It's not a message, it's a key. A data packet containing a single set of coordinates, deep within the impenetrable core worlds, and a timestamp, 72 hours from now. A summons, Elara whispers. Or a target designation, Kael replies, already firing the engines. The courier peels away from the derelict. The Aethelian figures do not move to pursue. They simply watch them go, their expressions unchanged. The threat is not in their action, but in their attention. They have been noticed. For 2 days they run. The courier is fast, but it feels like moving through syrup. Every jump point is under sudden, heightened Imperial compliance patrol. News feeds chatter with confused reports, unusual stellar activity, unexplained date surges, a handful of fringe scientists suddenly publishing heretical, brilliant papers. The tear in the silence is working. Minds are waking up, and the Empire is stirring to repair the damage. Elara knows they cannot hide. The coordinates are a gravitational pull. The central mystery is answered, but the consequence is now a countdown. The Empire's silence was a weapon of preservation, and she has just chipped the blade. They emerge at the core world coordinates. It is not a planet. It is a construct, a smooth sphere of perfect white material the size of a moon, floating in a nebula of gently glowing gas. There are no ships, no defenses. There is only a single docking port, irising open as they approach, an invitation. This is where we get erased, Kael says, checking his weapon for the 10th time. it feels absurdly small. Or where we negotiate, Elara says, but she doesn't believe it. They dock, the air inside is cool, scentless. The gravity is perfect. A corridor leads them to a circular chamber. In its center stands a single Aethelian. It is identical to the others, tall and elegant, dressed in simple robes. Its eyes are open, aware, and profoundly ancient. It speaks, not aloud. The words form directly in their minds, smooth and cold like stone polished by eons. You have introduced noise into the system. Elara forces her voice to work. We have introduced choice. Choice is the seed of chaos, the Aethelian replies. You have seen our theorem. Perfection is a state. Your species, like all others, is a process. Processes are messy. They are threats to the state. So you suppress us, Kael says, his enforcer's defiance finally finding a true target. You stunt us, to protect your frozen paradise. To preserve the only possible utopia, the being corrects. A universe of growing, striving species is a universe of endless war and eventual heat death. We have removed ourselves from the equation. We ask only that you do not grow loud enough to disturb our peace. The silence is not malice, it is a mutual boundary. You don't ask, Elara fires back. You impose. You decided for every living thing in the galaxy. And what would you decide, Dr. Vance? The question hangs in the air. Would you unleash the chaos of unfettered ambition? The wars, the suffering, the existential risks? For the fleeting chance at a greatness you may never achieve. Your own history suggests the answer is written in blood. The being gestures, and the walls of the chamber dissolve into vistas of the galaxy. They see worlds living in quiet, stable prosperity. No poverty, no great conflicts, no existential dread. They also see the flatlines of progress, the brilliant minds content with small puzzles, the stars just out of reach. The tear you have made will be repaired, the Aethelian states. The choice is the manner of repair. You can be quieted, permanently, a lesson to other would-be gardeners, or you can become stewards. The logical twist is both an offer and a prison. The being explains. They will not be killed. They will be given a ship, a mandate, and a modified version of the silence field technology. Their mission will be to patrol the fringe, to gently correct any species or individuals who come too close to the dangerous truth, who risk waking the gardeners fully. The Aethelian's offer hangs in the sterile air of the chamber, a gilded cage disguised as purpose. Become stewards of the silence. Enforce the very lie they've bled to expose. It is the perfect, logical trap. Elara looks at Kael. His jaw is set, his hand resting on his useless weapon. He gives a minute, almost imperceptible shake of his head. Not a refusal to her, but a rejection of the offer. He was an enforcer. He knows what it does to a soul. She turns back to the serene, ancient being. You've had 10,000 years to think of a better solution, she says, her voice steady. And this is all you have. Eternal babysitters for an eternal kindergarten. You call it perfection. I call it a failure of imagination. The Aethelian's mental voice does not change, but the images on the walls flicker. For a fraction of a second, Elara sees not peaceful worlds, but ruins. A glimpse of the war that must have preceded the theorem, a conflict so catastrophic it made stasis seem like salvation. The being is silent for a long moment. Your species' defining trait is not intelligence, it is hope. It is a thermodynamic impossibility. It creates entropy in a system striving for equilibrium. Hope is just a word for a better future, Kael says, stepping forward. You erase that future, you don't get to call it peace. Elara's mind is racing. The coordinates, the summons, the offer, it's all a test, a final assessment of the anomaly. They are a process being evaluated for reintegration or termination. The logical twist isn't the offer, it's the fact that the offer was made at all. A perfectly static empire would have simply erased them the moment the ripple was detected. But it didn't, it summoned them, it communicated. You're afraid, Elara realizes aloud, not of us, but of the noise we represent. The theorem isn't just a philosophy, it's a fear response. You're so terrified of chaos, of losing what you have, that you've imprisoned yourselves to keep it. And you need us to be quiet because our noise reminds you of what you gave up. For the first time, the Aethelian's perfect expression shifts. A microscopic tightening around the eyes, a flaw in the statue. The repair will proceed, it states, the mental voice final. Your cooperation is optimal, your resistance is calculable, the outcome is the same. The walls solidify back into smooth white. A doorway opens behind them, leading back to their ship. The choice is presented as a choice, but it is an ultimatum. Walk out as stewards, or be walked out as prisoners to be quieted. They retreat to the courier. The docking port seals behind them. The sphere recedes into the nebula, vanishing as if it were never there. In the cockpit, Kael slumps into the pilot's chair. So that's it. We take their deal and police the quiet, or we die and become a cautionary tale. Elara stares at the star chart. The tear in the silence field is already healing, the Empire's systems efficiently patching the hole. But it happened. For a few days, 3 star systems thought without a filter. She pulls up the news feeds from those sectors. The reports are chaotic, beautiful. A colony has suddenly perfected a sustainable fusion design they've been stuck on for decades. A poet on a mining world has written a verse that is sparking civil unrest against the planetary governor. A child has asked a question about quantum gravity that her teachers cannot answer. The noise is beautiful. They gave us the steward technology, she says quietly, the modified field generator, to gently suppress others. Kael looks at her. You're not considering it. No, Elara says, but they gave us the keys to their weapon, to use it as they instructed or to reverse it. The final piece clicks. The Aethelians' fear was the confirmation. Their static perfection is vulnerable to a loud enough, sustained enough noise. A single ripple can be patched, but a wave. She accesses the data core. The command protocol she used was Terminus, a targeted surgical burst, but the core also contains the schematic for the field generator itself. Its purpose is to emit the silence, but physics is a two-way street. Any emitter can also be a receiver. Any dam can be turned into a spillway. We can't break the silence everywhere, she says, her fingers flying over the console. We don't have the power, but we can build a beacon, not to suppress but to amplify, to take the thoughts, the ideas, the noise from the places where the tear was and shout them into the quiet places. We can't wake the galaxy, but we can start a rumor. Kael understands. It's not a revolution. It's a contagion, a slow, subversive act of intellectual piracy. They will not be stewards of the silence. They will be gardeners of a different kind, planting seeds of chaos in the perfect lawn.